Hey YouTube, today we're gonna make a critter. So let's make a critter. I'm going to make a few of the different types. I was just gonna think of different types and make some. And the tutorial for making a critter is actually very easy. The main first step is we're gonna add just a cube into the space. So just Shift A, come over, down, select the cube, and it'll center itself in Blender in the origin. You don't want to touch it or anything. The next part is basically making the eyes. All this is, there's several different eyes you can make. Let's say we're making a water type Boxnaut, right? Usually the water type, I'm thinking of a turtle here, and I'm just kind of thinking about its eyes. I know it'll have a shell, and so what I'm doing here is I'm holding down Z, and I'm flipping through the different cameras, and I'm just looking at my meshes and how I want to set things up. Usually when making the eyes or any kind of Boxnaut piece, I like the pieces to be pretty symmetrical. So say you have your default cube and you're wanting to make the eyes, and you're wanting to make sure you follow all the different axes, and you want to make sure it's lined up perfectly. You can either, Control C, V, copy paste this cube itself, or you could do Shift A, come over and select and create another cube. Press G, X, and bring that along the X axis. Press S, and bring your mouse to the closer, or the origin. Bring your mouse closer to the origin. And it'll kind of scale it down a little bit. And really, most of this, I just eyeball from a design point. I've been always be taught to never use the guides. I see points in using guides sometimes and making things fully even. In this case, we'll use a mirror for the other eye, but there really is no set size on what the eye should be. It's really for what eye expresses the character that we're trying to make, right? So for this one, we're making a turtle. And most times the expression of a turtle is maybe quite blank, or maybe it's a little cheerful, or maybe it's a little upset. For this one, I'm thinking he's a pretty chill turtle. So we'll just kind of give him this kind of long eyes. We'll kind of move him up a bit. There, I'm just using G to move it around. So I'm moving G. I press G and then I hit X, and I go along the X axis. I usually like to line up the mesh about halfway inside each other. I'm going to press S to scale, and then I'm going to hit Y to scale along the Y axis. And then I'm going to drag my mouse outward, and it's going to increase the scale of it along the Y axis. I'd like to move it up. Same thing, when we're talking about the size of the eyes, you don't really want to define yourself either to the location. The critter's eyes could be down here, perhaps, if it's maybe this low ground eating creature, or maybe the eyes are a little high up and this creature maybe sees a little bit further and it gets off prey maybe in the distance. Who knows? You tell your own story. Maybe its eyes are on the side of its head, maybe it has an eye on the back of its head. It's your critter, it's your story to tell, So the next part I'll be doing is I'll be giving this turtle a shell. There's a few ways that you can do this. Usually how I like to do this, when especially working in Blender, it just helps me eventually in the end keep my materials a little more organized. Some people may just do differently. This is just simply how I work. This is not a rule book. This is just a tutorial for how I work, and I try to be very efficient. So what I'll do is I'll select the main body of our turtle here, and I'll press tab to go into the edit mode. Right now I'm selecting only vertices, so I'll go up here to the top left in this little bar here, and I'll select faces only. I'm going to select this top face, and you could either do a few things here. You could either hit E to extrude, and then cancel it by pressing escape, and then press the scale button and shift press Z, and you will scale along the X and the Y axes. This is generally what I do. It is just very efficient. It's very smooth. So again, what I do, I'll hit E, I'll press escape to cancel it, I'll press S to scale, and then I'll press shift Z, and I'll scale it along the X and Y axis, and I can drag it out. Another way you can do this actually is by selecting this top face here, and by pressing shift D, and bring your kind of mouse up a little bit and then hit escape. Now you have this free moving face, and it basically just duplicates this face, and you can kind of do whatever you want with it. You can also here say then I'm trying to make a separate material, so then it's pretty easy to say it's just going to get messed up in there. So make sure you give yourself a little bit of room to do this. And then next, we'll kind of go back down. I'm kind of adjust this, kind of set it as an angle. Just a cool fact real quick too, if you hit R to rotate something, you can rotate it around kind of whatever axis. But if you hit it again, you can kind of freely rotate it. And this is really what I like to do. I like to press R twice and then hold shift. And then I can move it around a bit slower. And usually I'll try and find a bit of a nice kind of lighting on my base. Nothing too obtrusive, just kind of something soft, perhaps. About right there would be good. So now I'll go back to the shell. I'm gonna assign the green material that I made over it. And heck, man, you don't even got to make your turtle like a regular turtle. It doesn't have to be green. Maybe your turtle is in a ice environment and it has 6 legs and 4 eyes and tentacles, and that's how it survives its ice moon. Or perhaps it has 12 tentacles and it lives underwater. Or maybe it floats. This turtle has no legs, it actually just floats, and it has a halo that it communicates with. Right, what is the story of your turtle? My turtle is just, like I said, it's this is just a pretty standard turtle, just to show you guys how to make a critter and how I think about a critter when designing them for Boxnauts. So I've got my face selected here. I'll just select it, G, hit Z, and then I'll move it back down. I'll cross the face a little bit of this top one, just so I have a little contact of the faces. And then I'll press S, Shift, Z, and I'll scale it along the X and Y axis. I'll scale it out a little bit, so it kind of hangs over the eyes a little bit, like it has some shade, for the eyes. And then once I've kind of got to a spot I like, I'll hit E and bring it up. About something like this. Maybe hit E again, scale it down. I'll press S, scale it, and kind of bring it to a certain spot. Maybe start to play around, press G, X, kind of move it along the X axis, move it back. Perhaps something like that, you could say. And we could even begin to play with this, and let's move our eyes down, and let's do this. So now maybe he's like a fortified turtle. Let's give him some legs, and let's give him a plane to stand on, and let's kind of give him a little bit more life, put him in a bit of an environment. Let's move his legs into position. I'm just pressing G to move things around, and I'm just kind of lining them up accordingly. With really, there's no right or wrong. It's just what feels right to you. You could put your leg right here, you could put your leg right here, you could put it right there, maybe right over here. Do whatever you want. Tells the story of your critter. So now that I've got this in place, I will right click on the cube. I'll right click it. I will set origin, and I'll put the origin to the 3D cursor. All right. Once it's there, I'll go over to my modifiers tab. It's this little wrench icon. I'll click add modifier. I'll go over to mirror, and it's already set on the x-axis, so that's great. I'll click Y. I'm gonna make this a little bit more blue. Hey, we give him some buck teeth. See, this is my turtle. Adds a little bit more character. Tells a bit more of a story about our little buddy here. It's like almost like a skull turtle. It's like the skeleton turtle. Ah, pretty interesting. See, I've probably changed the direction of my own little thing here, probably, goodness, a few times now. So now I'm gonna add, I wanted to add some glowing eyes to my little critter here. So what I'll do is click this, click the face, I'll press E, scale, bring it down, and then I'll press E again and bring it out a little bit. Then I want to go ahead and select all these faces here. So I'm going to select Alt. I'm selecting the face, this top face of the eye, and then the corners here. So I'll click this corner and I'll hold down Alt and Shift and click the corner, and it'll loop click the whole kind of edge. And I'll go on here and select a new material. I'll click Assign to this, click New, go over to Principled BDF, go to the surface, hit emission, and usually I put it up to 4, and this I like to match the colorway I got going on here, so we'll give it this little pink kind of laser eye look.
Let's do it.
Gonna move that, and if I move anything around with the feet, I just go back to origin, and then I put the origin back to 3D cursor. So I'm gonna put them on a plane, stand here, push up the plane a little bit, same thing, S, Shift, Z, I'm gonna scale it out a little bit, give him a bit of land to kind of sit on. And now I'm going to add my camera into the scene. So what I'm going to do is press Shift A, go down here, select camera. Also, if you notice, this is kind of starting to get a little unorganized. How you should be setting up your files. I'll set this as the critter, the main spot, and we'll put all of our critter parts in here. I'll put one. I usually make another collection for, oh, it's just different scenes. I usually make a collection for lights, and then really the production, you could say, or lights and camera, and then I'll do another one where I do environment. I just got glasses today and I still can't see. Environment. There we go. I can't spell. So now I'll take the plane here, drag it into the environment, grab the lights, put them on my lights and camera, and I'll take our camera and I'll put it into the camera and lights. So now it just kind of makes this a little bit more organized. I'm gonna click the camera piece to make sure I activate it. I'm gonna press in, and I'm gonna go over to view, and I'm gonna put camera to view. Then I'm also going to click right here, this little camera icon, and I'm just going to scroll out, back up a little bit. And usually I'll go down to the depth of field, and I'll turn on the high quality slight defocus. Sometimes I'll put on the jitter camera. Here it looks pretty nice, so I'll keep it on. I'm going to turn up the max size a little bit, turn up the sprite threshold, probably throw it down a little, turn up the neighbor rejection slightly. And then the denoise amount I will turn down, I would say. Let's see. Usually this is just kind of for you to play with. The over blur, usually I like to crank this up to just kind of over exaggerate it. But you do you. It may not, sometimes it doesn't work for my scenes and I have to play with it and slide it around. But most times I like to just kind of crank it up some, and yeah. Subsurface scattering, this is kind of different for other settings. Screen space reflections, for sure, I like to add this. Just adds a bit more light that bounces off some things. Down into color management, I always go into filmic. I turn to medium high contrast. I click the curves, and this is pretty basic kind of photo editing stuff. I take my first point, drop it down a little bit, and then I take my top point and drag it to the top some. Sometimes this gets a little too dark, so I'll kind of put him back into place, or drag him around a little bit. It's kind of a spot that I like. And so now we'll kind of get into also doing our environment for our little critter here. So most times just observing, maybe he has these pink eyes and this brown skin and these black legs because it's what he eats on the ground around him, and it's what also the things around him, it's what his ground eats. Or these little critters, the bugs or whatnot. So we'll say the ground probably is a bit dark. Perhaps it's got pretty nutrient soil. We'll kind of saturate it a little bit. And now for the most part, it's kind of then picking his environment where our little critter lives and what he does day to day, and what he might actually be eating, and also the planet that he may live on. So I'm gonna go ahead and adjust the lighting, kind of adjusting, looking at the ground. I would imagine the atmosphere of this planet kind of has a bit of just a very soft touch. Wouldn't be too purplish, maybe a little brown. I would say maybe the dust kicks up. A lot of this dust has some element that kicks up into the planet's atmosphere and causes the clouds to kind of give this hazy, kind of brownish look. But this is what I'm looking for. So now, before I move my camera around at all, I'm gonna go ahead and unlock it. So I can start to play with the scene. And I know my camera is sitting right there. So I'm going to go ahead and add in just a cube. I usually like to add in a piece that kind of messes with the camera. I always think of having a foreground, midground, and then a background. My foreground will always be the darkest, so this piece here will be a rock. I do this is like pretty standard in a lot of my work. I'll do this rock here. I'll adjust the rock to kind of match the environment as if it's like a pure mineral piece from its environment. I'm gonna spin it around a little bit more if I do this. I'll open up a modifier, I'll subdivide it, and then I'll displace it. Click new on the displace, go down, and I'll select, sometimes I'll kind of check out cloud first. It's really just kind of what texture am I feeling for this scene. So usually I'll add one up here. I'll try and, like, I do stuff like this to really just try and mess with the camera and the lighting, and to make things a little bit more interesting. So yeah, so I'm just kind of really, like I said, I'm just kind of wanting some pieces to kind of come together. And this is just a critter spot. This doesn't have to be anything wild. I'm gonna kind of make its little cave here, like it lives in this cave. And what we're looking at is actually its, I just totally left that one out. I would like to use it somehow. See, usually I'm just trying to maybe affect the blur a little bit in the background. See here too, I can add a moon. Let's say we can put a moon in the back. So let's add a sphere here. Let's move it up and let's push it all the way. Go over to material, click new, emission, and kind of crank it up a little bit so it's like a star. And then we're going to change the color of it. Maybe through the haze of this planet. About something like that is perfect. Now I'm going to do a quick little render. I'm going to press my render hotkey, kind of check out how my depth of field and everything's working out. See, I have kind of some odd gaps here. I don't like how the blur is kind of connecting the emission with these. So I'm going to go over here and move my rock off that and put my other rock over there, and maybe it'll help kind of this distortion of the blur a little bit. I'm also going to bring in some kind of coloration in this kind of mid space just really quick, and then I'm going to start to bring in small little elements into the area around our critter. Just going to push this down. Usually too, a very good trick to be quick and generative in your shapes and objects, always create a triangle, make 3, and then you copy paste, and it becomes very easy to then place objects in your space at almost a randomized look. And usually I'll do this for my just quick renderings or anything. I highly recommend this. It will make a very fast difference to your scene. Like I said, just grabbing 3 objects, picking up and moving them around, copying and pasting. Like I said, I'm just shifting and doing this, and then I'll also go up here and I'll click the origin rotation, and I'll do it at individual origins. So then I can say, okay, I'm going to spin my rocks around, then I'm going to press the R, double R twice, and then I can spin these rocks kind of anywhere I want, scale them anyway, so I can start to get these really small, and we can really start to fine tune the elements of our environment. The only case is then you need to go back up to the individual origin and click median point. This will kind of help bring some of this back around. So a part of this too, I like for there to be, the little glow factor and whatnot. And so we'll add some. First off, we're going to save this file. If you haven't saved your file, save your file. Always save it. Don't do like me. I'm bad. I'm very bad. No, I don't want to do that. There you go. So I'll call this critter tutorial. This is going to go live on YouTube tomorrow if you're tuning in. I've been recording this, so I'm just setting up my critter. We'll give it 2 suns, maybe. Oh, I'm just kidding. All right. Basically, what we're doing is it's going to set up its cave here. I'm just going to kind of rotate it around a little bit, like how I have it set up. I'm going to kind of get this kind of box off of it. I'm going to go over to its modifiers, and I'm going to apply the subdivision, and I'm going to apply the displacement. Now I'm going to go to kind of one of its main faces, or maybe these two, and I'm going to press E, and it's going to extrude those faces in, and I'm going to basically make its little den. This is where this critter lives its life, and all it has ever known has been this little den. You know, this is where Mama and Papa Bear grew up together in this den here. So we're gonna give this critter a little family. First though, remember one thing I did talk about was adding the horns or some kind of element to this critter that says, hey, I'm pretty dominant in this environment. You need to respect me. You know, that kind of feature. So maybe, like I said, maybe it's his teeth, right? But I think something kind of cool to add would just be maybe just a little horn. So I'm going to go up to the body, press tab, select the face, hit E. I'm going to scale it along the Y-axis, kind of bring it down to a square kind of look. I'm going to go down to material. I'm going to go ahead and set this up how I want to. I'm going to set it to a horn-like color, so this kind of dark tan, a little orangish tan, and I'm going to bring the value down a little bit, and I'm going to assign it. Then I will hit E, bring that face out, loop select those other faces, hit E again, and start to make this horn. And usually when I do this, I just hit E, I'll scale down G, X, and I'll move it along the X axis. We like his horn to kind of turn up a little bit, so I'll press G and then Z and move it up the Z axis. And then I'll also hit R and rotate along the Y, hit E again, and kind of give him his final points to his horn. There we go. He's got quite this sticker there. Gotta watch out for this puppy. Yeah, this one's dangerous. That's dangerous. So what I can do now, kind of make this a little bit cooler. I'll loop select all these horns here, horn faces. And I'll press Shift D, and I will kind of make another horn, and I'll scale it down a little bit, and now we've got one tough critter. We've got one tough critter here. I'll press Shift D again, and bring this to the other side. I'm just gonna eyeball it. This critter's not perfect. It's okay if yours isn't too. One thing I'm gonna do is bring up these top faces here. It looks like they don't really. Just kind of ride those into the head there, perhaps. So this is my critter. This is how he's looking. He's pretty tough. He's pretty tough. So I'm gonna go back to the look, and I'm actually going to, at this point, select. I'm gonna actually select everything of my critter, and I'm going to combine him as one. I'm actually gonna wait first. I'm gonna apply the modification of the mirror, and then that should be everything. I will select objects and Control J. That'll control join everything. Now I have this object, the pret. You may have to go back. Here you see I had it selected on his eyes. You may need to go back and reselect his face again for this to work. So now I'm gonna click the critter, and I'm going to give him a little colony of other little critters that are just like him. And this will be his little communion and his little family. And it kind of shows off he's in his hive. He's in his space with his other little critters. And I'm just control pasting, just kind of trying to make it interesting. Maybe put one of them up in the foreground a little bit. Just kind of maybe introduce some scale or whatnot. Let's render it real quick. Let's see what it looks like. This is pretty good. This is a little annoying, so I'm just going to delete those two. Maybe sometimes something quick you can add to, maybe like water. This here, I'll just go ahead and make the plain blue. Kind of rotate them down a little bit. And here, I'll just basically place along one of the faces. This is not something you have to fully kind of render out. It's really just, you're really just modeling for the view of the camera. So I'm gonna make this kind of skim. We're gonna have a few of these waterfalls. So I'm just gonna press tab. Have some water kind of beaming down the rock, you could say. And something along these lines. So I'm just gonna kind of make it line up here. Maybe just some water, and then I'll also add another plane. I'll kind of flip this around a little bit. And see, look, I'm not doing this all professionally. When I just flip to the camera, it just looks like what it needs to be. So nothing too major, nothing too wild. Then my final touch is kind of when you have water, you have other life. So let's put some plants into the photo as well. And you kind of want it to make sense. So let's place it near our water. And it doesn't have to be anything wild. So I'm just going to kind of push here, push out. And you always go big, medium, small. Big, medium, small. Big, medium, small. Same thing. Always here. Everywhere. Big, medium, small. That is necessary, I believe. You need to understand that. Big, medium, small, and anything that you design, it'll make your design process. Like, even if you aren't a designer and you're just like, yo, I love Boxnauts. I want to make something. Big, medium, small. It's creature design. It's how we're all made. Look at yourself in the mirror. Torso, arm, hand, fingers, right? This is how we're made. You have to think about your products and your design these ways. I'm going to kind of make it, a product of its environment as well. I'm going to change that watercolor a little bit as well. So let's say actually these plants, they are orange because maybe the water is a little red. And this is also kind of what feeds into the rocks, into the dirt. It kind of gives that haze and kind of explains what the whole light ordeal is as well. Even with these lights, I'll go through and kind of add a little orange tint to them. I usually, like, one thing I've always learned too, never make anything uniform. Always add a little bit of variation into everything that you do. Never let anything be static. Don't let it ever sit on a linear plane. Don't let it ever sit into an equal existence, because it never can. So why would you ever represent it in such a way? So always just kind of make sure you go through and click little different things. Even here, I'll go through and maybe that water has a bit more intense kind of minerals in it, so it's a little bit more red, and this one has maybe a little bit less, and perhaps it's mixed with another stream, so it's kind of a little bit orange. We could say that for those two things. And then we kind of have maybe this mixed ground where it's kind of in between. So this kind of idea, maybe this is a little too orange, that's maybe a little too red. This is just kind of something here I play with. It doesn't have to be extremely notable either. It's just kind of, these are just details that I know and I care about, and so they're important to me. So I'm going to take my two plants, my two little leaves, control join, and then I'm going to start to place them kind of in my scene. Same thing. I'm going to make 3, and then I'm going to start to rotate them around. And very quickly, I have a small little space with some plants in it. So I'm going to go here, make it kind of small. We zoom it up. Let's make them a little bit more dense, like a prairie. Yeah, there we go. Got that one. Let's look at the other one. We'll control J. Let's look at it through our camera. It's pretty good. Let's lower it down a little bit. This is good. This is good. So now we'll take this and I'll begin to just place it throughout the scene. And different variations too. So back here, I'll make it pretty big. It's just always important to kind of add these little factors. It just shows life in your renderings, and the diversity of the life that you're trying to convey as well. So, and look also how much depth has just been added now by adding just all these small little elements, and they're just little handmade elements, and I'm just kind of placing them around into really kind of how I want to guide the eye throughout the piece. And then kind of the final touch, I like to add these little glowing cubes kind of throughout the rendering as well. So I'll kind of put that into the ground. Push this over here. This. Face cam. I'm doing a YouTube video right now. I'm recording a YouTube video. And so I'll turn this, make this emission. I'll go and click emission and I'll set it to 4 like I do with everything else. And I will click out of that. And I'll just double tap R to rotate it around. And like I said, I kind of wanted to match the environment. It's kind of got this orange glow. So maybe on the other end of the spectrum, maybe this is the super powerful mineral that's kind of in everything that kind of, as it slowly degrades and filters through the nature, it turns to this brown and this orange, but it really starts as this yellow. And then when the creatures eat it and it mutates with them, it kind of gets to this pink. So this is how we kind of achieve the kind of the color family and the explanation of its whole environment. So just gonna place these little glows kind of throughout the scene. Just adds a little bit more color, a little bit more information about the environment, might tell you a thing or two. And most times I would just use a particle effect, but if I'm just using a little tiny small render here and I'd like to just kind of show some things off, or just very quickly, this is kind of how I would do this. Make sure I'm kind of putting this in the rock here. It'd be nice to have them up into the cave. And I've got them on 4. Let's see here, I've got this in the critter. Let me hide this real quick. Where's the beginner cube? I had messed up, I didn't set the emission on the same of all of them. I'm just gonna join all those and then set there, not to 45 but to 4, just to get a good glow. Where's my environment? Go into my plane. It's very unorganized, but it's okay. Just gonna move this around in their little cavern a little bit. Okay. I think this one needs to kind of just barely appear. Let's also get one showing here. Just trying to slowly position this right on the camera. These are just the small details. This is just time I'm gonna take to do this. So this is practically the rendering. This would be it. This is the look I'm going for. I've got my critter. He has his survivability factor, and he also has a bit of his reproductive factor where he can show off a pretty cool trait and show that he can still survive in the environment around him. And then I've also displayed the different element types where I have, the rocks, I have some life, water, produce the planet where it gets its energy source from. These are kind of all some really cool factors in your rendering that will help you make a better art piece for the competition. Even little things, adding its little house and whatnot. And all I did was just kind of mess around with the cube a little bit. But I hope this tutorial helps you out, and I'm very excited to see everyone's critter.